All right, welcome to the CLEAN meeting. I am on the ancestral and territories of the Wasanic First Nation here in the Pacific Northwest region in Canada, and we'll throw a link into the chat window for folks who are interested in learning more about the Wasanic peoples. I would like to welcome everybody today and start with announcements. Are there any oh, actually, let's do introductions first. Let's go. I see people still sort of popping in here, so I'm a little bit reluctant to do announcements right away, but let's do that. It's an informal day. We don't have a distinct presentation, so let's take a moment and introduce ourselves and say something like a little bit more in depth. So I'll model. I'm Deb Morrison. I am a learning scientist at the University of Washington and elected official here in Canada for the local trust conservation area, and am engaged in work around systems change in science education, specifically with respect to fostering climate justice literacy in educational spaces, pretty much everywhere. And yeah, so I'll leave it at that for now, and I'll put a link to my other sort of eclectic background in the chat window. So in my window, I have Wendy next. Can we go to Wendy?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Wendy Abshar. I'm a meteorologist by training that has had a majority of my professional career in education in the atmospheric and related sciences. I did that for 30 years at UCAR in Boulder, Colorado, and have now been in the position of Education Program Director for the American Meteorological Society for 4 years. And in that role, I support my team to further science literacy of all people everywhere that we can manage to reach, predominantly in the US though, through K-12 teacher professional development opportunities in weather, ocean, and climate science, so that teachers can teach these topics with confidence and leverage real data in their classrooms. And we also extend that to supporting undergraduate faculty, especially those without strong support systems for teaching the earth science, to adopt and offer our weather, ocean, and climate curriculum to those that may be getting their last shot at a formal chance of learning more about weather, ocean, and climate science. Should I popcorn it, Deb, or are you gonna pass it?
No, you go ahead.
All right, next up in the squares for me is Patrick.
All right, so I'm Patrick Chandler. I am a PhD student at the University of Colorado Boulder and the CLEAN coordinator, but I often don't go further than that in my introduction. Great to have the opportunity to. I'm going to throw in this animation, which is of an overview of the creative climate communication curriculum that I've been building and piloting over the last couple years. And my work really focuses on bringing art and science together to create collective action on environmental and social justice issues. So right now, I'm creating a set of guidelines for partnership with leaders of art science projects around the country. We've done about 30 interviews. It's been great, and I'll have those guidelines published in a month or so, along with the final version of this curriculum. So we'll have some fun things to offer and talk about soon. I'll throw in one more recent interview on climate change and comedy that I did there, if you want to jump into that realm. All right, I'm going to pass it to Frank Granshaw.
Okay. Oh, looks like I'm unmuted. Okay, I'm Frank Granshaw from Portland, Oregon, and we actually have blue skies again today, which is really nice. I am retired, so to speak, from teaching community college for about 25 years, geoscience. I'm a glacial geologist by background, and in my retirement, which happened, I'd say about 5 years ago, I've been working part-time teaching climate science for non-scientists, as part of the University Studies program at Portland State. Developed a curriculum for that, which is online now through PDX Scholar. I should say a resource manual for that. And otherwise that I'm involved with a number of different climate justice organizations in the Portland, Oregon area. One of which is Greater Portland Sustainability Education Network. Big project for us last year was to develop a virtual bridge to COP25. We are working on recruiting other communities to develop virtual bridges to COP26. So it's rather than just one of us as a satellite conference, so to speak, that there's multiple conferences going around the planet that essentially serve to broaden engagement, something UNFCCC always says it wants to do. So anyway, that's enough. And I guess in terms of, okay, Patrick's on one side, Deb's on the other. Eric, you're up.
All right. This is like, what is that? The squares. Yeah. The
Hollywood squares.
Thank you. Yeah. We're a instead of a 3x3, we're a 3x4. Eric Havel, I've been working in informal science education for 25 plus years. Very interested in climate space specifically. Sort of where I am in my life now, I lost a full-time job at Science Center in Oakland after 22 years. So I have a part-time role at a smaller nonprofit in Oakland called Community Resources for Science. And we're focusing a lot on climate science literacy building, especially focused on teachers and teacher programs, professional development opportunities for them, opportunities for their students. Ultimately, right now it's digital opportunities, but ultimately, you know, field trip opportunities and other things. And so that's kind of my on the ground stuff, but sort of from a more personal standpoint, or sort of what else is happening in my life. I'm taking care of a 99-year-old grandfather who's about to turn 100 in T-minus 45 days or something like that, which is really exciting. And he's doing, all things considered, he's doing really well. We have good conversation. You know, he's cognitively there, which is, I think, what we all would hope at 99. So that takes up a good chunk of my time. And then I've been using this COVID period of our lives to really explore more of the climate and energy, environmental literacy space at large. You know, that's kind of jumping into the Clean Network in the last couple of months, and just been having some great conversations with different colleagues at different levels, doing different kinds of work, kind of trying to figure out like what my next big thing is going to be, where I want to sort of hang my hat for the X number of official career years that I have left. Plus, you know, I think if this is climate change education and action is a lifetime endeavor, regardless of whether we're working or not. So I think that's what I've kind of realized. And so it's allowed me a chance to step back and kind of take that to heart and figure out like what I do with that, you know, and where do we each go with that. And I'm just excited about the diversification of the climate space now with respect to youth and ethnicity and globalization of awareness. So all that stuff that I have been so interested in for so long, but haven't always had a chance to hone in on it. So anyway, I've got a project that I'm working on that I've referenced a few times. It's sort of this, I call it my big idea fantasy project, which is linking.
Eric, I'm going to pause for 1 second.
Oh, sure.
I want to come back to actual project shares in a second.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I'll stop there. Yeah. Thanks, Deb, for that. And so I'll bring that in when we talk later. And on my squares, who's next that hasn't spoken yet? I think Katie, you haven't spoken yet, right?
Have not. Thanks, Eric. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Boyd. I'm the Clean Program Manager, and then otherwise also work at the Series Education and Outreach Group at the University of Colorado. So do some educational research and evaluation on the side of what I do with Clean. And yeah, I think I did most of my I don't think I have a lot else to talk about. We have some exciting projects and I have a lot going on my plate right now, but actually I think I would really like to pass it to Mark Godinez next. But I want to caveat, I'm actually really glad that I got to introduce myself before him because I'm really excited he's here. He's a new, we have a teacher ambassador program that I have launched this school year. I did some piloting of it last year, and Mark actually signed up, and he's going to be a teacher ambassador for CLEAN, and he's got a really exciting thing that he's doing to try to bring climate change into virtual reality spaces for a computer science class. So I'd love him to just sort of mention that in his introduction if he's willing. Thanks, Mark.
No problem. Good afternoon, guys. I have a short intro. It's really nice to be in such esteemed professionals. My name is Marco Diaz. I work in South Dade Senior High School in Homestead, Florida. I'm a computer science teacher. So my role here is 2 years, or actually like 2 years ago, I got involved with climate change. And my goal is to introduce climate change and the issues to my students. So my goal, my end goal, hopefully, you know, I'm working on it now, is to have my students program or technology for good involving climate change, using, you know, creating VR, using Unity, using, you know, the incredible projects. I want my kids to be motivated to be game changers. I'm also a NASF. NASF is North America Scholastic Esports Federation. I'm actually a fellow this year. And what a fellow is, like they choose 27 around the nation and Mexico, United Kingdom. Esports has been grown really large. And I just mentioned esports because I want my kids to create games that teach kids about climate change. That's my end goal. I'm very excited to be here. I'm not gonna talk one more thing. Thank you for having me here. If I leave shortly, it's because I'm just on my lunch break and I gotta go back to my class, but I'm really excited to be here, guys.
Welcome.
Excited to have you
Welcome.
as part of CLEAN. I'm really glad you joined us today. Thanks, Mark.
All right, and Mark, if you want to nominate someone who's close to you on a square.
Okay, I'm looking. I know Frank G already went up. I don't want to mispronounce your name. Is Frank Neopol? Did I say it wrong? Did you already speak?
It's all good, man.
Okay.
It's Neopold, but it's, you know, some crazy German thing, so don't worry about it, Mark. I mispronounce people's names all the time, so I'm totally cool. Thank you. Really nice to be with you. I'm Frank Neopold. I'm at NOAA at the climate change, the climate program office. I'm part of the leadership team for the Communication, Education, and Engagement Division at NOAA, the largest, I think, climate communication, education, and engagement division in the U.S. government. So something I'm pretty proud of that we've built over the years. I'm currently, I was a founding member of the Clean Network and also currently a co-chair, but happy to know that I have a sunset coming in my future, which is awesome. That means we have continuity and growth. I've got way too many things to talk about but I think one of the ones I'm most excited about is the work we're doing on developing an ACE national strategy. That's the big one that I've got rolling on right now that is pretty significant and important, and I'm excited about. So I'll put a link to something that's coming up, but I won't talk about it right now. Yeah, I'm good, Deb. I catch it.
Okay, I cut you off. No worries. I got it. I got you down though, as wanting to share more broadly. So
yeah, let's go to Tiffany. That looks like an awesome place you are, Tiffany.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sitting on my front porch. So I'm like Mark. I'm a newbie to this space and feel very lucky to have found all of you, and it's only because of COVID. So I think it's one of those silver linings. I'm a recently retired teacher from the Boulder Valley School District. I taught 27 years in Boulder Valley and retired in May of 2019. And I spent the summer trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And I knew I wanted to do something with climate. There's an amazing network of folks around here in the Boulder area. I talked to lots and lots of people and kind of landed on doing my own thing. So we started Classrooms for Climate Action last fall.
And I'm gonna get you to explain more about that in a sec too, because I want that.
Good one.
I know, it's so hard, Tiffany.
It's all good.
Did you get to choose somebody?
Let's see. I'm so sorry that I came late. Have you started yet, James? Have you introduced yourself?
Yeah, I can go ahead. Hi, Tiffany. Thank you. So I'm James Callahan with climatechangeeducation.org, and one program is the mobile climate science labs. I guess I'm inclined to maybe just give an example of what a focus is for the next couple of weeks. I mean, 2 weeks from now, it'll be another focus on many different projects. We had 9 of our students sign up to do the voiceover for videos for the AGU conference and figure out how to fit that into a 4-minute presentation. So I think that's all we get, but there's going to be all these different videos, and what they're going to focus on essentially is a supercharged place-based learning climate program, as well as project-based learning. They specifically are taking videos all over DC, and we have students also in California doing the same thing, that show what NOAA's GOES satellite sees from space in infrared, as well as NASA's Terra satellites see in infrared, and how that is very powerful in monitoring Earth science as it happens now and on climate change. It's very exciting. They've got all these videos that they've shot all over the place, including from the top of the Washington Monument, where you can see all over DC. It's very powerful, but now they're doing the voiceover, and that's just an example of you know, we always talk about place-based learning. It's a very exciting tool that goes on. So later there might be some questions I have, including, by the way, Frank, just a heads up, the students were asking when we brought up internships. I mean, these kids are just in middle school, but they're looking ahead to middle internships, whether it be in high school or anything. And they say, how can we be an intern at NOAA in climate science? And then some of the others who are more interested in education wanting to know, does NOAA have internships in education on climate change? Because you're going to want, your students are looking to do the work to be candidates when their age is right.
Don't answer that yet.
Not going to. I'm not saying anything. I'm just acknowledging.
Okay, let's keep going on our introductions first. And thanks very much, James. Frank put a link in the chat. Can you see the chat, James?
Me?
Maybe. Yeah, I'm in the dark, but I'm reading. Okay, thanks.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure how much connection you have. Good. And do you want to nominate somebody? I think we are down to.
Oh, of course. So how about Christy? How about Christy? By the way, Christy, I recognize your background from your wonderful teacher presentation. So that's one.
Well, thank you. Before I had a son right here painting, and you know, now it's just my mudroom. I had a cool painting. I have to get it back up there. So James, thank you for shipping me some climate models that I used in a Climate and Energy Connections course for teachers in August. There's been such demand that now we're sending these kits out that you sent. So I learned about that from Clean, and I also learned about my collaborator that I co-taught this course with from Clean. So you guys are awesome. Thank you for being a network for both academic, you know, researchers and teachers, but also preschool all the way through grade 16 teachers. So I come from you from the University of Alaska Fairbanks Trofyetta campus, which is a sacred site of the Tanana Dene people. And I am the STEM educator at International Arctic Research Center. I've been involved in climate education for 20 years, and I have been doing climate education both as a, you know, non-formal or informal science educator for a watershed organization, for University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where I was a program coordinator of conservation and environmental science. And then I changed careers and became a teacher. So I left academia and watershed nonprofit to become a middle and high school math and science teacher, and then moved up to Alaska just a few years ago. And I'm pulling all of those things together to now be a STEM educator for UAF, University of Alaska Fairbanks. And I just have to say, Mark, thank you so much for sharing that you want your students to create games that teach kids about climate change. My 17-year-old son, who just took a Python coding class, heard that. And he's in the next room over eating breakfast because it's only 9:30 here in Alaska. So thank you so much.
That's awesome. And I think we're just down to Gina, if I have it right.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, I'm outside, so
Be happy you're
if
outside.
yeah, sorry if you hear like trees or anything. So yeah, I'm Gina. I am actually a master's student at George Mason University studying science communication and climate change communication. I am currently living in upstate New York, actually, because of the virus, so getting to spend some quality time with my family. And I kind of got into this field in high school as a member of the Wild Center's Youth Climate Program. They host annual summits for high school and college students to talk about climate change. I'm now on the advisory board with them, and I'm also on the board for the Clean Network. So I always listen in when I can to these meetings, and it's good to meet you all.
Great to have you here. So if we can do a quick round of any announcements first of like upcoming events or things like that, just to make sure we're all aware, and then we'll loop back around on project shares, a little bit more deeply shared. Mark, can I just ask a quick question logistically? How long is your lunch hour? How much more time do you have?
Yeah, so at 1:55, I have to leave to get ready for the next class.
Okay, so maybe we'll have you go, that's fine, because we're gonna be done at 2 anyway, so we're good with that. All right, announcements and shares. Anything that people need to share across the network? Katie?
Yeah, I have really quick announcements. I've already announced these, but I'm just going to continue doing them. So we have our webinar series going on for Clean. People can check it out and sign up here. PD for teachers, learning about clean and how to teach climate and energy in their classrooms in various ways. And then we also have our Clean Elementary resources and collection that we just launched. So we have a page that's sort of a front page to get into all of that I just put into the link, into the chat as well. So check it out, share it around. We'd appreciate it. Thanks.
I've got a quick announcement. It's not something I'm personally involved in, but I'll be attending. There is a film premiere tomorrow that you are all invited to. It is called, it's a study of environmental Arctic change. It's a premiere screening of After the Ice, which is a great co-production model with Indigenous communities. To the Bering Sea Elders Group is involved, and the screening is tomorrow, so 10 a.m. Alaska time, so 2 p.m. afternoon Eastern time, and it will be not only the film screening, which will be shared eventually on PBS, but we'll also, the makers, the elders, the video journalists will be, and the climate change educator, Bill McKibben, will also participate, and you can interact with them. So I'm putting that in the link or chat.
That's terrific, thank you. Frank, did you want to name the ACE meeting again?
Sure. So on October 22nd at 1 o'clock Eastern time, I put the Eventbrite in there. If you haven't already, some people have already signed up, but if there's others, and this will be where we launch the community review of the framework. We're in the middle of the strategic reviewers phase. We're moving fast. It's impressive. It's important, and it only gets better with other people pushing and working on the issues. And from there we go to November 6th, all the community comments come in, and then launch it in November 30th. And we're going to keep on schedule. So pay attention, join, and engage, and you're welcome to join in here. But October 22nd, if you can't make it, it'll be recorded, but just make sure that you're tracking it.
That's great. And I stuck the link in that Frank had put up further up.
Great, thank you.
Other announcements? I thought I would let you know that I have been part of meetings yesterday, today, and for the next 2 days that are really interesting for this group, I think, in terms of what's going on in the international realm. So they're part of the UN Local Communities Indigenous Peoples Platform Facilitated Working Group. A lot of acronyms in there. But basically thinking about how the work that Frank has sort of helped initiate nationally around the Action for Climate Empowerment in the States, what's called ACE, is actually being worked with the local community Indigenous peoples platform. So I'm in a smaller sort of conversation with them around one of their particular activities to think about Indigenous knowledge and how we understand and work with that in the context. So it connects to what you're talking to about, Christy, like super interesting film that you're reviewing. You can go into the LCIPP Facilitated Working Group meetings as just a watcher, like they live stream them. So they're really interesting and they record them. It's super helpful to look at just to see how that type of knowledge as a field of scientific effort is being thought of and worked with across the world by Indigenous communities and the UN. So, and this is all part of the UN FCCC. So it's all climate change related. So really interesting. Kathy, I noticed, has popped in here. Kathy, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Kathy Manduka. I'm the director of the Science Education Resource Center at Carleton College. Done a lot of work on education connecting geoscience to societal issues.
Great, thank you. Any announcements? Anybody else? Announcements? All right, so as this is a more informal discussion today, we have time if we want to go through some of the project shares. So if I totally interrupted Eric. So if Eric wants to come back and name what it is you're working on, and then maybe we go to Mark and Frank if he wants to say more, and Tiffany too.
Well, thanks so much, Deb, and no worries about interruption. Totally get we're a big group and it's important to step up and step back. But I think that's one of the things I've learned even more recently too. So. So two projects I wanted to share. One is more tangible and sort of on the ground, and I've mentioned it before to the group. We have an energy and climate science literacy program that we're delivering in the fall for my employer, Community Resources for Science. 3-part program, started with a kickoff event for teachers, resource fair, virtual, and then now there's a string of 10 workshops that we're sort of offering a lot of project partners. Each delivering workshops, no cost, an hour and a half in length, and can target anywhere from K to 12, any bracket in there. Trying to weave in equity and access and sort of the cultural awareness piece to the workshops, and obviously the digital learning platform, tools too, because that's what we're all working with. And it's going to culminate in ideally one or more professional learning communities that we'd like to develop. And so I've been having conversations with folks about what those could look like and how would they be administered and who would be, housing these, because many folks have the same aspirations, many groups. So like Katie and I had a conversation about the Clean Network and the resources that are here and how that could weave in. And so anyway, would CRS own one of those? Would my former employer Chabot own one of those? Would it be like more of a collective as opposed to, a single ownership model? So kind of working on that, and as it gets more concrete, I'd love to share and hear back guidance and thoughts. And I know Tamara Ledley's presentation a few weeks ago was informative, and just kind of hearing what folks are doing is really helpful. And then the other big project idea that I mentioned, which is really more a concept, but it's what brought me personally into the climate space in college, was this idea that we have climate analogs across the planet. There's the rainforest environments, there's the subtropics, and for California, we have the Mediterranean climate zone, and there's 4 other climate zones in the world that are analogous to ours, the cool, wet winters and the warm, dry summers. And so I've always wanted to explore the idea of an international collaboration that would sort of learn from each other. And then with the climate change happening, it's been interesting because during COVID, I've had a chance to do deeper dives into each of those regions, and they're all experiencing similar stuff, right? They have mega droughts, they have water shortages, extreme heat, wildfires like in Australia. Each of the 5 regions is undergoing the same, well, I wouldn't call it the same changes, but they're being impacted. And so to me, there's an awareness raising just from the starting point, like what is climate? Why do these climates exist? So there's that literacy building piece, but then there's the how do we help each other? Because we're all experiencing change, but it's not the same change. Each is unique, and each have different hazards and threats that are sort of foreboding, but we can learn from each other. And so kind of hearing where spaces are going with respect to indigenous communities and local communities, different communities bringing something to the table, I thought the idea would be to connect very local specific case study stories to the global picture. You know, so like what's happening in East Oakland with respect to sustainable farming and agriculture. And there's high school kids that are actually starting urban farms in Oakland, which is really exciting, and doing carbon sequestration on the ground. I'm sure that's happening in Cape Town, South Africa somewhere. I'm sure that's happening in Australia. But it'd be great to share these very specific positive actions that are happening, and then bracketing that or framing that with the overview, all the NOAA visualizations and the NASA visualizations that are available. What's happening with climate, and what do we anticipate will happen in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years? So that's the conceptual idea. And I'm just going to share my email and a link to the Google Doc in the chat. And if you want me to share the Google Doc with you, just email me and I'm glad to share it. It's just a 2-page kind of what I described is that's kind of what it is. But thanks for the opportunity to, it's great to have thought partners to just think through ideas as well as, you know, pushing forward.
Absolutely. And check out the chat, and others as they think of resources can throw things into the chat or into the Google Doc too. Frank?
Just a quick idea, Eric, especially given where you are, you might want to consider the project drawdown solutions, and then map them not by type, but by region. Not every solution works everywhere. And so I've been talking with Elizabeth Bagley at Drawdown Learn about this idea of using like a dichotomous key for solutions, so that if you're here, then you get to the 100 plus more solutions narrows down to 15, and then you can actually explore those 15 within the context of your place, as opposed to this overwhelming growing list of solutions, which is massive, to wow, that's executable at our scale. But definitely a very solution forward position is probably important in this work. So that would be one framework for that. And then the other one is the Climate Resilience Toolkit for the United States. Gives you a different solution framework, which is more about resilience, which is more about saving what you can, as opposed to solving the underlying cause.
Thanks, Frank, for that. Yeah, and I just attended a drawdown webinar for just getting the overall view of drawdown. So that's great. Thanks for the recommendation.
Elizabeth Bagley's an awesome collaborator. She's been bouncing around the clean community in different efforts. So if you haven't gotten to know her, she'd be a key person for you.
Great, thanks much.
Other comments or thoughts people want to throw in that aren't in the chat already? This is a really well-known challenge in terms of how we bring together data sets and how we think across spaces. And there have been a few folks in the Climate Ecos group too, that's the other one, who are thinking about how to pull together this type of work with some of the folks internationally who have been thinking about this. One of the problems I think we come into, and Climate Frontlines has hit it, and so has the LCIPP group at the UN, is when we're trying to really think of justice, grassroots justice work in those spaces, sometimes those local efforts, the knowledge and experiences either aren't being shared because they're more community owned. They're not individual ownership to be shared that way, and knowledge is thought about differently. We share knowledge person to person in relationship instead of broadly in an abstract. And then you understand the responsibility you have with the knowledge as we share human to human. So that's one problem we're hitting. And I don't know if I would name it as a problem, but it's one issue we're hitting in terms of broad knowledge sharing. And then the other one is many of the people who are doing some of these really innovative, cool grassroots solutions aren't writing about it, and those cases aren't getting into the broader community. So that's a little bit challenging, but I threw a few of the grassroots organizations that are starting to document their work in there too. Anything else on that? Mark, do you want to share a little bit more about your work? We'd love to hear.
Okay, so I'm glad I came because I want to make this comment. I think I was afraid like 2 years ago because I'm very new to the space. I teach computer science, but not necessarily science. So I guess one of my projects that on October 24, I'm actually going to be a speaker at the Miami-Dade County Public Schools Teacher Expo. It's virtual. So my project is using virtual reality to teach climate change. And basically the project is using the Oculus Quest, and the new one just came out, it's coming out, the Quest 2, and utilize VR to get kids excited, to use that space to get them excited and to learn about what climate change is. So basically I do service learning projects, and my goal is to have my kids teach other kids. Mm-hmm. So that's that project. So, you know, like as not a science teacher, but as a technology teacher, to give, like right now, I got resources right now in the chat, like we're one about resources for elementary. So I see myself as I think of, you know, they call me Mr. Resource in my district because I'm good. I have so much information and I just spit it out and I give it to my colleagues. But that's my goal, you know, to get, you know, people excited, teachers, no matter what they teach, to get them in that space. My other project that's new is integrating scholastic esports into climate change. So like using Python, using Scratch, you know, those are web-based programming languages. Have kids, you know, create something without them knowing, with them knowing it, but they're actually learning about something like, you know, sea rise level affects Miami. So, you know, that's my second project. It's still brand new. I'm still working on it, but the good news, guys, you know, I'm not going to talk very much, just one more minute. Is I did a partnership now with a middle school, a K-8 center. So I already have that partnership going with the principal. So my goal is to publish this. And since I'm a Scholastic fellow, it will be published and shared globally. So, you know, that's really my goal. And, you know, like with being a clean ambassador, which I'm new, is sharing this to other teachers, not necessarily just science teachers, but to spread this to other teachers so we can get more of an impact. Last point, out of 60 students last year that we did, we partnered with Clio in Miami. I'm proud to say that one of my technology students, that's my student, is a climate speaker. So he talks about climate change, and he's my technology student. That's all I have to say. I don't want to take up too much time, but that's what I have going on right now.
No, really helpful question for Mark.
And Deb, if I could have the liberty of checking in with Mark, I mean, this is for everybody too, but Mark, either we can talk offline or whatever if interested, but we definitely can share resources with you about virtual VR and climate education. We know programs in California that are doing it, that would love to do things on climate change. When we have been at these field trip hubs where schools from all over the Bay Area come to see us do hands-on science, they're the other anchor. Their thing is the most popular of all the things. The kids just swarm it. And anyway, we're glad to connect on things. I don't think they have good things on climate, but they'd like it. So, I mean, you could be really a leader in that and not have to start from scratch in terms of like, or spread to other states if you want. Okay.
Frank G.
Yeah, Mark, I just popped my email into the chat for you. Really should talk. There's a whole bunch of folks, including a guy by the name of Don Haas, who's occasionally on these calls. He and I have worked on a number of VR projects related to geoscience. There's a whole network of people around the country who do that. So yeah, you're not alone. There's a lot of stuff out there, including stuff for getting students to build VR.
Man, so you know what, you guys, sorry, I'm like so sensitive. Like I swear to God, thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this. This is like, I'm really happy. You guys made my week.
But hey, Mark,
yeah,
we're not allowing you
in here. Sorry, Frank, go ahead.
We're not allowing you. This is your network. It's just as much as anybody else's, right? You take it where you need to go. You get what you put in, and we give what we can. So what you are welcome, but we don't even need to say that.
Anyone else have questions for Mark? I have lots of questions, but I just can't even think what they all are. One of the things I wanted to like maybe note is, and you mentioned like your connection to elementary, so, and other teachers, like outside of science. It's something I've been thinking a lot more about lately because, you know, I am a serious science geek, you know, and like very much came from the sort of hard sciences into education. And yet I've had a lot of contact in the last few years, last 5 or 6 years, especially with elementary teachers. And it's really made me think a lot about how we are both sort of permeating science into all other content areas and across all sort of learning domains, like in literacy and mathematics and all different places, but the opposite being true as well, how we're taking in from other disciplines into science classrooms in ways that, and I think, Jim, you get at this a little bit, and others who have talked here, I actually think it's Patrick's work too, about like thinking about arts and thinking about like how we bring social studies is one of the big ones I've been thinking a lot about lately in the state, how we bring like human, social, science, economic, spiritual, like ethical issues into science more deeply. Because I think these silos we're in are challenging as we teach, especially at the K sort of 8 and probably K-12 levels, but I would argue everywhere. So anyway.
Thanks for that perspective, Deb. I really appreciate that because I think I've been talking and hearing a lot around the first part of that idea of trying to get climate taught in other disciplines and other ways than just science, but the opposite is also true and happening, and like that's really important to remember and think about, is that's another way we sort of decrease those silos. I like that. Thanks for bringing that in. I appreciate it.
It's a definite controversy for science teachers, though, because they're not always well prepared on how to handle social controversies in a science context of teaching. And so, like, we need a lot of supports provided for them to engage in that. And so, yeah, the more we can think about that. And it's a blurry line sometimes for scientists, you know, I'm sure many of you on the call are like, you know, so, you know, how we manage that and why we may need to do that or not, you know, it's a worldview perspective on how we engage in science work. All right, I had, Frank, do you want to say anything else about the ACE work or unpack any of that?
I don't, I mean, it just, I think I've covered it, but please join the effort. There'll be many entry points, but the key next one is October 22nd. I also do want to remind you, there is a page in the Clean collection on managing controversy that I found to be really impressive. I'm going to put the link in there just to pick up that last point you made.
And I think I wrote one of the STEM teaching tool I wrote on controversy. I think I linked to that page. And I think I linked to the National Center for Science Ed work on that too.
Yeah, Karen Kirk developed this and I really like it. I was going to put it in the chat as well. Thanks for bringing that up, Frank.
Of course.
All right. Tiffany, do you want to share with us more about your work? I know we've heard about it before, but I like your work and I'm curious where you're getting to now.
Sure. In the spirit of supporting teachers, our work, and we've been working together, so Katie and Jessica Bean and I have been developing a model called Climate Action Coordinators. And if you think about kind of like a three-legged stool, one leg of the stool we developed based a little bit on looking into the UN's document on climate action, and a lot of the Invesco schools around the world, they talk a lot in that document about a dedicated facilitator. And what we've tried to do is look at the realistic bandwidth of teachers and create a model where someone is coming in to help them embed climate education into their existing curriculum, no matter, I mean, because it can fit everywhere. So that's one of the legs of the stool. The other legs of the stool is relationship, and knowing that a lot of the teachers who are the type that would look into clean automatically and teach something on their own are already either on the verge of teaching climate or they're gonna teach climate. And then we've got a whole bunch of other teachers who I know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, that are just keeping their head above water And if somebody else comes in and helps them do it, they will do it. So our model is to reach all those other teachers that really might not take the initiative to get climate into there. As a teacher for 27 years and seeing states and school districts kind of cyclically add things into the curriculum, but never really getting around to getting climate solidified in there, our idea is let's use outside climate action coordinators to come in and help teachers do it. And then the third leg is, speaking of the ECOS community, was that powerful paper that I know a lot of you worked on with Mark McCaffrey on Powers of 10 and that sweet spot. And this climate action coordinator, and we've got a lot of it going on right here in Louisville, where you work with your local government. Right now, I've got a bunch of kids here in town that are working on passing a really aggressive bag tax for paper and plastic. So we're working with the mayor, working with the students, working with community members. And so again, that sweet spot of let's get schools and teachers and local government working together for climate action. So that's our model. And some of you might be getting an email from Katie and Jessica and I this week inviting you to join kind of a thought group to help us move this model forward a little bit. So thank you. And thank you for everyone on here that I've been learning from.
I want to jump in and just actually acknowledge all of the work Tiffany did on this first, because she really developed this great program that was bringing retired teachers in to help teachers bring climate into their classrooms, and especially at the elementary level. But I know she worked with kids at all levels throughout the last school year and had a really great sort of program going. And I, met her in the spring on a clean webinar I did, and then got connected that way. And Jess and I have just come in and really helped with this idea of, we see this happening not just with Tiffany's group, but in other ways and forms as well. Like a lot of times an informal science center, a museum person might serve that role of being that kind of connector between folks in the community and schools or scientists or whatever it is. I've seen a group, I think in some of your ACE discussions, Frank, there was that group over at the University of Virginia that did that like urban heat island modeling work and stuff like that. Anyways, I just see this happening in different forms as well. And so Jessica, Tiffany, and I came together to think about as a large, that's what Tiffany was just describing, that larger model of kind of how can we think about this as working in other contexts and for in different ways. But I just wanted to acknowledge all of the work that she did to really build the program that's local here, that's doing this work already. And it's just amazing to see and watch in the last year, even like she said, I'm local, we actually live close to each other, and watching the bag tax, I see it, I'm not in Louisville myself, so I don't get a vote for that one, but I know it's on the ballot there and things like that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and also let you know that yes, we are working on trying to develop a larger model as Tiffany described, and we'll likely reach out to several of you are on our list to help us think and brainstorm around that. So I'm hoping to do that in November, so we'll reach out to you soon about coordinating it.
All right. Anyone else for final thoughts?
I had a final thought that has been ruminating this whole hour, and I was part of a presentation at the National Tribal and Indigenous Climate Conference about 3 weeks ago or so. And one of the presenters from Wisconsin in a different session, which was on energy, posed the question that what if all the federally recognized tribes in the United States signed the Paris Accord? And what message would that send? And he was presenting about how successful renewable energy has been in creating microgrids there in Wisconsin, and gave several examples elsewhere. And that was so inspirational, hearing that. So I hope that this group continues to connect with Indigenous communities. And then there are so many who are doing great work that I learned about at that conference. And I can't get the recording. I can see the recording because I was registered in the conference, but I can't share the recording with all of you.
No, yeah, you had to be a registered person in the conference to see the recording. Yeah.
Mhm.
And but yeah, that was the first one that I think has been held, that tribal and Indigenous Peoples Conference here in the US, and amazing. So yeah.
Happens every 2 years. So 2 years from now, especially, you know, I don't know where ACE will be in 2 years, but hopefully we'll be part of that conference in some way as well. So just wanted to have that thought or share that thought.
No,
I
that's a
already
great thought. Thank you. Thank
I'll-
you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I wanted to attend. I wasn't able to attend that conference. So thanks for sharing out, Christy. And I'll mention one that Patrick and I attended, not this past spring, but the spring before. And then they've been doing virtual conferencing this year, but it's a little bit more of that like working group style conference. Rising Voices does a little bit more on the science side of things, less on the education, but definitely thinking of how do we kind of merge Western and Indigenous thinking and science and ways of knowing to understand climate better and thinking about that. So it's another group if you're interested in those kinds of topics. I just wanted to throw that out there. And if you're also interested in this, Clean is working on trying to ingest, or we are ingesting some resources that a group's developed that has culturally relevant climate teaching resources into the collection, but we also have developed a page. They have a really great climate course around the climate literacy principles that they've developed that align with culturally relevant messaging. They worked really hard on this, and they have different ways to interact with the material based on sort of the regional differences of all the different tribes and views and things like that across the country. So if you're interested in that, Clean Call in 2 weeks will be presenting about it and kind of launching it. So I'd encourage you to tune in to that as well.
Quick question for that. Is there kind of a couple sentence description of that call? Is that just on the Clean website, but then I can share that back to collaborators?
Definitely, yeah. I don't know if the description's up on the Clean website yet, but I can work with Patrick to get it up there in the next week or so, so that it can be shared around. But I can also just email you, Christy. I have your email. Let me just email you right after this, and then Patrick and I will get the info up there as soon as we can. But I'll just email you right after this so that you have it. Yeah.
We're working with Alaska, let's see, Interior Native Alaska, excuse me, AINE, Alaska Interior Native Educators for braiding globe and a birch, like a seasonal birch unit. So we are working to put out in the next year probably 15 different lesson plans that are braided. And we're starting to release the spring ones, at least to NASA, our funders on this project, this month. So that's been a process that's been going on for about 3 or 4 years. And it's a slow co-producing curriculum, and co-production is a slow process, and even more so with COVID. And so when something comes out like that, you know, the amount of love that's been put into it is so important. And hopefully we will be able to share this curriculum with Clean, you know, hopefully in spring.
And Christy, one of the things, I put the LCIPP link in there, but activity 4 of the LCIPP efforts internationally is actually to try and have any shareable curriculum that is Indigenous examples, like looped up into the international level as examples. So it'd be really good to try and like connect with those folks just as your initiative moves on, because there's so few examples that are truly shareable from Indigenous communities, so that would be great.
Okay, wonderful.
I'm gonna wrap us up officially as we hit the hour here, but thanks everyone for the great shares. What a great conversation today. Thank you very much.
And yeah, Christy, when those are ready, be very interested in them for Clean. So the lesson plans and activities, like always looking for more stuff like that. So
great, thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks, everybody. I'm saving the chat because it's always so good. Don't close it yet.
Perfect day.
Thanks, everyone.